Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you are feeling refreshed for the final day of the AFC Member Associations and Regional Associations Presidents and General Secretaries Conference 2024. Yesterday was filled with enriching discussions, starting with insights on building high-performance organizations and leadership in football. We also explored the role of football in shaping performance both on and off the field, along with an exciting look into the ambitious Saudi Arabia FIFA World Cup 2034 bid. There were also valuable lessons on how entrepreneurial thinking can transform football management, and we ended the day reflecting on how historical leadership shaped the foundation of modern football governance. As we enter the final day of the conference, it's my pleasure to welcome our first speaker, Mr. Haroon Malik, the chairperson of the Pakistan Football Federation's Normalisation Committee. He will be sharing a case study on a decade-long struggles of Pakistani football. Welcome, Mr. Haroon. You have the floor.
General Secretary AFC, Datuk Seri Windsor John, President KFA, Mr. Chung Mon Gyu, respected presidents and general secretaries and honored guests. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about Pakistan football. I know that it's a subject that often comes up. With the normalization process running for the last 5 years, there's a lot of information that perhaps we're not aware of. So, sticking with the theme of the workshop reform, I would like to take the opportunity today to have a candid discussion about Pakistan football with the hope that some of the challenges that we've faced, some of the solutions that we've come up with will somehow benefit or allow you to look at your federation from a new perspective. On January 26, 2021, I took charge as the chairman of the Normalisation Committee for Pakistan Football Federation. Fully 2 months into the role, I was attacked in my office. So as I'm sitting there and working, all of a sudden I hear a commotion, and pretty soon a large group of people bursts into my room asking me to sign over the accounts, to hand over Pakistan Football Federation, and to leave the affairs of football to them, which is what I should have done. But in that moment, something snapped, and I refused. I said, no, do whatever you want. There is no way that I'm signing over the accounts to you. So I've thought about that many times. This was also not the only time that I was threatened or attacked. Since then, I've been fighting court cases. I've had police cases filed against me. I've had religious decrees filed against me. And honestly, I'm really not that bad a person. And so I think back to that day and to the events that keep transpiring. And I realize that it was not me that they were attacking. And we heard this from one of our August speakers yesterday as well. So when you change, beneficiaries of the old system become your enemies. And this is exactly what was happening. And so we were moving from an organization that was run as a personal fiefdom to something where we were enforcing rules, regulations, and being professional in our approach to dealing with football. And fundamentally, the reason why Pakistan football is where it is today is an issue of governance. Governance and development. And so let me take you back and start this study from a few years before so that we can set the context and understand the actions that led up to the formation of a normalization committee. So normally, we say that for football development, it's important to have a stable management and for the sport to matter in the country. Well, we had the same management team from 2003 to 2019, 16 years. So checkbox number 1, tick. And the sport is extremely popular in the country of 250 million people. And the genesis of Pakistan football is with Pakistan. So in 1947, Pakistan was established, and the Pakistan Football Federation was signed into existence the same year by the founding father of the nation. In 1948, we were able to obtain membership of FIFA, and we've been a founding member of the AFC and the South Asian Football Federation. In Pakistan, the sport of football is extremely popular. Yes, we're a cricket-first nation. It runs in our blood. Football, though, is played from mountains to the sea, from east to west, across the country. And we find that younger audiences resonate more with football than they do with cricket. And if we look at the numbers, the social media reach of our accounts on a monthly basis is 5 million, and our total media reach is about 64 million on an annualized basis. So football is an extremely popular sport in the country, and this is why having leverage in football provides you power and influence within the society. And I think this is why we continue to see crises. And our crises have been severe. So I asked Fred yesterday if I could use his term. And yellow, we've received multiple red cards. So we've been suspended in 2017. We were suspended again in 2021. We have a normalization committee now running for more than 5 years. We barely played any football leading up to the normalization process. A total of 6 international games in 7 years. Only the men's team. The women's team wasn't even playing. And even though I was attacked, this was not the first time that there was a physical attack on the football house. Maybe I should have been better prepared for it. So while I speak about all of these crises, what are the factors that cause them? And for Pakistan, I think they're interesting. And one of the contributing factors is actually what we would call the stable management. I will also walk you through the role of PFF in creating these crises. And then I will talk to you about the events of 2015 that led to the Normalisation Committee being established in 2019. So stable management is a fantastic thing if it is benevolent and geared towards football. If the management is entrenched for reasons that it was propagating its own self, then that stable management is not good for football. And this is what we've seen. The PFF itself. So our past president, as I mentioned, was in the role for 16 years, from 2003 to 2019. During a large part of this period, our president was also a sitting minister in the National Assembly. And perhaps it is not a coincidence that if you look in the last column on the slide, I have highlighted the role of government interference in our Congress. So the Pakistan Football Federation Congress is 26 members. Out of those 26 members, the ones that are highlighted in orange are government representatives, so 8. The way that we structured our competitions in the past, the women's champion also always came from the government, so 9. And the 3 women's representatives that were assigned was also from the government. A senator, a politician, or somebody else that was from the government. So out of 26 Congress members, we built a structure for 12 votes belonging to the government. And we built this very specifically because as a sitting minister in the government, those votes are yours. We also, at that time, used the statutes to consolidate all power into the position of the president. So the EXCO met twice a year, as per the statutes. In actual fact, I don't know. There was a concept of an emergency committee, and all decisions, operational or strategic, were taken by the president. The statutes were also used to decide who could contest for the president. And out of a country of 250 million people, maybe not even a handful of people could qualify for the position of president. And this was another way to consolidate power and to propagate the concept of staying in power. And this is where eventually it all came to a head. So the events of 2015 are when the house of cards tumbled. And so I will share with you what happened. So even though it's a little complicated, it's spread out a little bit, I will try and condense it as much as possible so we can follow along with the events that happened, starting from the federal elections when Pakistan football imploded. So 2015 was the year when the football elections on the regular pace were supposed to happen. As many of you might be aware, we have multiple provinces, and one of them is the province of Punjab. So as in the past, the then president appointed his own people into each of the provincial associations and announced who the provincial association will be. The difference, though, in Punjab that happened this time was there was a very strong mandate for someone else to become the president of Punjab, and in utter disregard for the popular mandate, the then president announced his own person as the president of Punjab. Naturally, the other party went to court and obtained a stay order against the election process. So now, Pakistan Football Federation, from the court, is prohibited to conduct elections, and no points for guessing, but we went ahead with the electoral process. We announced the results of Punjab. We held elections for the EXCO, and the then president announced himself as the winner, as a successful candidate. It is brilliant that FIFA and the AFC supports their member associations, but to bank on that support to take on a fight with the government perhaps is not the reason why that support is provided. Of course, the courts were not happy, and they came back with a very strong reaction. So they said that the elections are not valid. They appointed a court administrator, and all the affairs of Pakistan football were then handed over to the court administrator. This includes FIFA funds, AFC funds, and PFF funds that the court administrator then spent over the next 2.5 years, but we'll get to that. So the court appointed an administrator. The PFF, the past president, recognized by the FIFA and the AFC, moved into a rental property, and now there are 2 PFFs being run. And in August 2015, a mission came to Pakistan, and they said that what has happened is wrong. They recognized that it happened because of poorly drafted statutes, and they asked that the statutes be changed and a proper electoral process be conducted. No ban on PFF. So PFF is being run by a court-appointed administrator. And so 2 years were given to the PFF leadership to make the changes. At the end of that 2-year period, PFF questions the decision of FIFA. And says, how can you interfere in our internal affairs? We had an election. We're supposed to be here for 4 years. How can you limit our mandate to 2? But in those 2 years, we did nothing on the statutes. We did nothing on the electoral process. We didn't negotiate with the courts, with the government, with anybody to move them out, to gain control back. But all we cared about at the end of 2 years was that my mandate is for another 2. So it was then recommended that the Faisal-led PFF, and we have to say that because the court is leading PFF, and so the Faisal-led PFF was given another 2 years to do the same things that hadn't been done in the previous 2. Also, court hearings were held in August, September, October 2017 with no result, which ended up in FIFA suspending PFF in October 2017. Based on the court administrator being appointed. And once the suspension was served, Pakistan Football Federation received its premises back. The court administrator was removed after 5 months. And the then president is now back in Football House. But it took 2 years for that suspension, after which 5 months later the House was back. Okay. So now, the Faisal-led PFF has Football House, has control of the accounts, has control of football in the country, and they're supposed to work on the statutes and conduct fresh elections, which, again, did not happen. And then the courts intervened again. And in 2018, the courts asked that the elections for PFF be conducted within the court premises, which happened. And then a new body was formed. So after enjoying 15 years of privilege, the president once again handed over PFF, the accounts, the Football House, to this body that was elected by the courts, and once again moved into rented premises. And we continue to recognize the Faisal-led body, while the Supreme Court appointed body for all the funds they utilized during that period, 64% were put into personal bank accounts. So this group, the Ashfaq Shah group, is exactly the group that attacked me, because this is how they had come into power before. With no consequence. In May 2019, so 5 months, 6 months into the parallel association being in charge, a mission was sent to Pakistan who rightly determined that things had reached such an impasse that it is not possible for the PFF to conduct its elections, and that a normalization committee, a normalization process needs to be started, and a normalization committee needs to be put into place. So the decision to go into a normalization process happened after years of action and inaction in certain cases by the Pakistan Football Federation. So I can blame FIFA and the AFC and the courts and the government, but the truth of the matter is that this was on us, on PFF to do the right things. And if we had done the right things, we would not be in this problem. And so began the normalization process. And like any sane person, FIFA and AFC took 2 candidates from the opposing camps and put them together with an independent chairman, hoping that they would be able to sit at the table, negotiate, and resolve whatever the issues were, and come up with a middle-of-the-road solution that worked for everybody. What we saw in reality, though, was that that did not happen. They could not see eye to eye. There was too much bad blood. And those meetings, most of the time, ended up in shouting matches and fights. In the 1.5 years that the Normalization Committee was there, the decision they took was to do away with all district and provincial associations and appoint their own people. So now we have a country of 240 million people with no district, no provincial football administration. The chair of the Normalization Committee resigned in December 2020. A new person was appointed as the chair, and in the 1 month that he was there, his only decision was to overturn the decisions of the previous Normalization Committee. And this is where I naively stepped in. So we started off as a group of 5, and very soon, one of our members was let go. And so before I go into the details of what happened, I think it's very important to see how we've spent those more than 5 years in the normalization process. So starting in September 2019 to December 2020 was the first Normalisation Committee. The mandate was then extended a third time till 30th June 2021, and I joined on the 26th of Jan 2021. After that, for the next 3 extensions, Pakistan Football Federation was suspended before it was finally, on the 30th of June 2022, the suspension was lifted, and that is when work in earnest began. Just before moving off this slide, it is not surprising to me that FIFA and AFC did not know about the electoral process in Pakistan and how long it takes before the Normalisation Committee was appointed. But a year and a half of normalization did not show us that as per the statutes, the electoral process is 9 months, and therefore I was given 5. And I think this shows us what the first Normalisation Committee never got around to, which was beginning the electoral process. So what did we inherit? Well, we inherited the support of FIFA and the AFC, for which I am very grateful. Because FIFA and the AFC continue to believe in Pakistan football when Pakistan does not believe in Pakistan football. And this is truly remarkable and a blessing for all of us. Other than that, I inherited 3 employees, an office that had been ransacked with not a single document or paper present in it. In fact, the fittings had been broken, the blinds had been torn, it had been destroyed. More than that, we inherited negativity about the normalization process and a complete lack of trust in elections in Pakistan football. And again, as I mentioned, we were attacked. And we were attacked because when I started, naturally I called in employees and I started getting telephone calls from across the country. This is the son of so-and-so, you must keep him, he's a very good person. And I walked them out the door. Many people came up to me, you're supposed to pay me X amount of money every month because we hold tournaments for you. And when I found out, I walked them out the door. And many other such examples. As I mentioned, once we had control back of Football House and our accounts, the suspension was lifted. And since that time, I can tell you that the results we've delivered have been extraordinary. And I do not believe that anybody could have done what we've done. It's not great that it took us 76 years, but for the first time in 76 years, we won a World Cup qualifier event. For the first time in 76 years, we won an Olympic qualifier event. This win was delivered by our women's national team, which had not been playing for the last 8 years. And so we reactivated women's football. And then we did a whole host of other activities over this 2.5-year period, in spite of the fact that we're on restricted funding and we have issues with our funding models. On the governance side, we instituted a dispute resolution mechanism, which I will explain a little later, has taken away third-party interference from PFF. We started building the organization from 3 employees. We are now up to about 40, including our contractual and technical. And the biggest thing we did was the implementation of a digital registration platform, FIFA Connect ID, which is the most amazing thing that you can do, and it really changed everything for us. We've been on restricted funding since 2011, and this is the first time that as an NC, we were able to bring financial transparency with not a single red flag against any of our audits. And most importantly, we started educating the community about its rights and obligations. So elections really have taken the bulk of this time. It's been 2.5 years of full-time work that we've been doing. And only now are we at the finish line for the normalization process. And the reason why is because of 3 things. It's the PFF Constitution, it's the fact that we started from 0, and it is the trust deficit that exists within the community. And let me tell you about the time traps in the Constitution. So there are 4. Club, voting right, electoral process, and how the Congress is formed. And for a club, it is the simplest requirement in the world. You have 20 players and 3 officials. You have your own statutes. You have a bank account, and you're registered with a government body. We went over the electoral list from 2015. 2,100 clubs had voted, and less than 1% of those clubs fulfilled any of these requirements. So when we asked clubs to register, of course, there was a huge trust deficit. They said there's no benefit to registration. We started the digital registration drive, and everybody told me, Haroon, you're mad. In a country like Pakistan, you expect everybody to register digitally. Well, today we have 2,000 plus players and officials registered on the platform, and this has been the game changer in conducting elections. It's a brilliant system. Once we had the clubs registered, the second issue is of voting rights. Voting rights for clubs are very simple. The club needs to be an active club, which means participated in the district championship and played 90%. Had there ever been a district championship or a league? As you might recall from earlier, the first NC had done away with all district and provincial administration. So again, it fell to us as an NC to conduct district championships across the country, as the round for club scrutiny. So here's the electoral process for Pakistan football. First, you have the clubs, which I just told you we've now done. We're now doing the APDC, so we're awarding all Pakistan district championship. We're doing the APDC, so now we're awarding voting rights. And we have to conduct elections for Pakistan Football Referees Association. We have to have a women's championship to determine who the women's representative will be. I have to assign 3 women as members of the Congress, and then all the departments need to play a championship to determine who gets voting rights. So rather than sending out a person to each district that would be abducted by the powerful in that district and would come back with an election that happened in their drawing rooms, I conducted WhatsApp elections. This was the best thing ever. At less than 20% of the cost of holding elections through a ballot box, and in less than 30% of the time, we conducted these elections, and we were able to do them because through Pakistan Football Connect, which is FIFA Connect ID, we had everybody's registered numbers. We knew who the presidents were. We were communicating with them for the last 2 years. We sent them the list of candidates in their area. We said, take a picture of your ID card, record a video of yourself saying who you are voting for, and type out who you voted for and send it to us. And we took all of this in. I have 100% verifiable, traceable results for the district football electoral process. And no matter how much everybody hated that I did this, people from across the country have come to my office to say, I've been in football for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and I just wanted to shake your hand because this is the first time that I've ever voted. So again, thinking outside the box. So we know who the clubs are. We've now conducted district elections. During this period, we also conducted elections for the Pakistan Football Referees Association. Again, this was the first time their elections were ever held. We've conducted the Women's Championship during the same time, so we know who the vote is. We've already started interviewing for the women's representatives, and we've also conducted the departmental championship to know who the departments are. And the last thing left is now the elections for the provinces and the territories. And I'll share a very short video with you.
After months of groundwork, the Pakistan Football Federation's Normalisation Committee successfully progressed to the provincial football elections, marking a significant milestone on September 19 and 20. Dedicated staff facilitated a smooth voting process by checking ID and guiding voters, while election officers ensured transparency during the ballot counting. Following the final checks by the election commissioner, the results were announced. Chairperson Haroon Malik, leading the Normalisation Committee, declared the elections a success, emphasizing professionalism and outlining the next steps to restore governance. He also expressed gratitude to the football community for their continued support.
So provincial elections were held in person through a ballot box process. They went off fantastically well. Both the losing and the winning parties went on media, on record, to say that this was the most transparent election ever. What is interesting, though, is that the folks that were losing power waited till the last day and filed 13 court cases to stop the elections from happening all across the country. We actively contested every single court case, and the decision that we got was because PFF has a strong dispute resolution mechanism, because they fall under FIFA, therefore the local courts do not take decisions in these matters, please go back to your own body. And this was a game changer. Nobody expected this, and we were able to proceed with the provincial elections. So currently, we're on track to complete our mandate. This month, all the provincial election, the tied seats, the vacant seats, everything will be completed. Once the new Congress is in, we're asking them to change the statutes partially to allow us to conduct elections for the position of the president. Otherwise, that's another 3-4 month process. As of now, on the 9th of December, we will hold elections for the EXCO, and we will hand over to the new body before the 15th of December. And then I finally get to go home. But we've been in this process for 5 years. I think the biggest legacy that we leave behind is that FIFA and AFC have shown what is possible in Pakistan football through all the achievements that have happened. So yes, we can have transparency, fairness, equity, we can have an electoral process, we can play the game, we can participate globally, we can win a World Cup qualifier, we can have administrative reform. Also, before the NC, less than half of the country was included in the electoral processes of Pakistan football. Less than half the country. Because everybody that wasn't a part of the party, they were not invited. So for the first time, all of Pakistan is now participating. At the end, I will leave you with 3 big questions. What prevents this from happening again in Pakistan? What prevents this from happening anywhere? And if it ever does, and I hope it never does, how do we normalize faster? Thank you very much for your time and attention. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haroon, for sharing the insights into the challenges and lessons learned throughout this journey. With that, we would now like to open the floor for questions.
Good morning. First of all, Haroon, congratulations on the work well done, almost done. And I appreciate and really commendable resilience from your side, from the Normalisation Committee and from you as well. But I have a question. From your presentation that we found out, there was a court-appointed administrator. There was elections held by the court within the court premises. I'm just surprised to see that the federation wasn't immediately suspended by FIFA or any other governing body for that matter. Would you know the reason as to why the PFF avoided suspension in these situations in the past?
Okay. So I hope your question is not focused on how we avoided the suspension. That's just a joke. But as to why we were not suspended by FIFA and the AFC, I think I will allow them to answer at some point in the future when they're so ready. But from what I've understood in these last 4 or 5 years, because I've been dealing with the government, with the court systems, we've been having all these fights, I believe the onus lies on PFF to say that this has happened and to request for action. And so if we don't communicate clearly, honestly, and transparently, then how can we expect any action to be taken? So again, throughout the presentation, what I've tried to show is that I can blame somebody else, but the truth is I must take responsibility for my actions. So I'm not sure why it wasn't suspended, but what I can be certain of is that the messaging from our side would not have been clear. I hope that.
Thank you. Do we have other questions for Mr. Haroon?
Hello. Haroonji, thank you so much. It's so insightful. The journey that you've gone through, tremendous. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
First Normalisation Committee Chairman resigned. Second one resigned. People were not able to take up the challenge. You took up that challenge and you succeeded. In 76 years, bringing in 2 qualifications, tremendous.
Thank you.
It shows that leadership is so important. And one of the questions I'm going to ask you is the question you asked us about, will that happen again in Pakistan? And what is going to prevent it from happening in Pakistan? Because you've shown great leadership. But I was made to understand that as a normalization chairman, you will not have the option of standing for elections as a president, which is actually very, very strange because you are a Pakistani and you have done so much for football. So, I mean, can you give me your views on this? Because from our side, you've done such a fantastic job. Leadership is important. You've achieved what most presidents have not been able to achieve. But yet, you're at the situation where actually things could go back to what it was before, because you and I understand how things work.
Yeah. Thank you, and that is why I left the 3 big questions to you, because they're really hard questions. My view on this, though, is that we are not far enough removed from that mindset that this may never happen again. So right now, as I mentioned, FIFA AFC funds have been misused by various parties. And what action has happened? Nil. So what is the consequence? Nothing. So who is now interested in coming into power? That's one. I think the second is that in certain circumstances, we cannot depend on the good offices of that particular institution to transmit information transparently. And so mechanisms need to be put in place where that is being taken care of. I think with the advent of technology, with the advent of AI, having centralized dashboards, reporting systems, mechanisms that allow us to look at leading indicators versus lagging indicators is imminently possible. And I think over the short term, short to medium term, so 2 to 5 years, that's the direction we should be moving in. So, thank you.
Just a follow-up question or suggestion, because in Bhutan, what we've done is that through the government process, we've made it mandatory for politicians and government officials not being allowed to be a part of the sporting associations and federations. So country to country specific, if interference of politicians and government officials is an issue, is there a process where Pakistan can start through the changes in rules where politicians and bureaucrats will not be allowed to be a part of your sporting associations?
I think the most important thing is to first remove government interference from the PFF statutes. Right now, half the vote in the PFF Congress belongs to the government, and that is by design. If we change one thing in the statutes, that should be the thing that we change. And then beyond that, as to who is eligible to contest or not, I think that's a conversation perhaps to happen at a later stage. Today, I can tell you that all of them are who are eyeing PFF and vying for that position already. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Do we have further questions for Mr. Haroon? Okay. With that, we would now like to invite Tan Sri Dato Hamidin bin Haji Muhammad Amin, FIFA Council member, to the stage for pennant presentation. Thank you very much, Tan Sri Dato Hamidin and Mr. Haroon. You may take your seats.